In this video, we're going to be talking about the truth of why we think Cole Caufield's contract took just a bit longer than we thought to get signed, plus some elite company that he's in when it comes to NHL goal scoring, and finally an awesome update on his injury. So without further ado, let's get right into the news today, and we're going to talk about why we think this Cole Caufield extension took so long. Jesse, as we all know, everyone watching, we talked about this yesterday, this has been some of the top news in the NHL, even with the Stanley Cup Finals going on. Cole Caufield signed to an 8-year contract, but what I wanted to look into today first is the structure of this contract. And I saw a lot of people saying, oh, well, that's why it took so long. Look at this. Cap Friendly gives the structure of the $7.85 million cap hit by 8-year extension. And if you look, the first 4 years, Cole Caufield, our boy, is raking in almost $40 million total, while the deal kind of backdives in the last 4 years, making about $6 million per, with some varying no trade clauses in the last 3 years. We got everything from signing bonuses to changing numbers of teams and no trade clauses. Jesse, this is a little bit more complicated than I think a lot of us thought at the beginning. Do you think this was maybe a little bit of a sticking point when it came to fully finalizing this contract?
Yeah, I think it was just Kent Hughes really showing his skills as just the great former player agent that he was. And that's what's so nice for us as having him as the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens. He's using these skills. He's using that experience to negotiate the best possible deals for our young players. So we see having those relationships, but then those smarts as well. And I feel, Josh, that maybe that's what kind of contributed to this taking a little bit longer, because hearing from Cole about, just the whole process is you really feel like he wanted to be here the whole time. He wanted to be a Hab. So it was really just kind of working out some of those finer details, and I really like how Kent Hughes has worked this out.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him in that press conference. I mean, everything, all his body language, everything he said made it seem like, yeah, I wanted to be here. He was saying how much he was talking to Nick Suzuki. Like, those guys are best buds. They get to play alongside each other for at least 7 years now. And even Cole himself said about making more money or not making more money than Nick Suzuki, because if you guys didn't know, Caufield's total deal is $200,000 less than Nick Suzuki's. So like $25K less a year on average. But he said, that's our guy, that's our leader, and it's still a heck of a lot of money, so I'm not complaining about anything like that. So, I mean, first of all, what an awesome attitude from Cole Caufield. But I guess it eases the pain. We're going to bring up the contract again here, that he's making so much in those first few years. Now, Jesse, I wanted to talk a bit more about this specifically and the implications to the Habs, right? Because Caufield, in these first 4 years, the AAV is something like $9.3, $9.5 million for the first 4 years. So, like, think about that. The Habs were comfortable, at least on an 8-year deal, giving him about a $9.5 million AAV for the first 4 years, but only about a 6 in the last few years. And if you guys aren't sure about how the cap exactly works, you take the average annual value, the AAV of 7.85, and that's what gets applied to the team's cap hit every year. So those last few years are not going to be 6 against the Habs cap hit. But Jesse, at the same time, we saw lots of issues in the past with backdiving contracts in the NHL. They completely outlawed them. There were people got in a lot of trouble for them. But this here seems like the kind of the perfect balance for the Habs. Caufield gets his crazy money up front in the next 4 years, similar to what he would have gotten probably on a bridge deal. But also the Habs get the long-term security for 8 years. Plus, they slightly bring the cap hit down with that, no trade clause incentive in the last few years to maybe knock the price down a bit. So, I mean, overall, I think this is as perfectly structured as you could possibly get. What do you think?
I really think so too. And that's why I'm so excited for this team. We have like the structure, we have the framework laid out now. We have two very young, talented players that want to be in Montreal. Not only are they great, but they play great together. They're buddies. It's basically a dream situation.
Yeah.
Like, we've just drafted such a gem here of somebody who wants to be a part of the team long term. And I feel like this deal is completely fair because, in my opinion, I've even mentioned it, like, I'm such a fan of Nick Suzuki. I'm a fan of the complete game, but Cole Caufield has to be my favorite, most dynamic player on the Montreal Canadiens. And, he is getting paid less than Nick Suzuki, which is great for the structure, for the team, and everything else. But we need to remember as well that with Nick Suzuki, who signed that 7-year deal, they're buying another year of autonomy from Cole Caufield, right? So there is, a little bit of savings there as well that they're getting through that as well. So just something to kind of consider with all this. But I think just looking forward, now we know and even having this structure laid down for the future of how we want to add to our team, because we know that cap hit is going to go up. It's kind of coming right at the perfect time. So I'm just really excited for how this is all going to play out.
I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth, and I think that Caufield and Suzuki signing these sets a real precedent for the other young guys that are going to have extensions coming up in the next few years for the Habs. If someone like Caufield, a guy who is one of the most electric players in the NHL when he's on, is willing to sign for this kind of money, I mean, like, you can only hope that a lot of the guys will follow suit. So I think the Habs are in a perfect situation. It is a perfect contract. Can't wait to see how it turns out. And, I mean, not only is it a perfect contract, it has potential to be, like, even better than we're saying. And I'm going to show you what I mean. Cole Caufield's in some elite company, and I mean, look, we've said that a million times this year. It's certain. I mean, he's one of the best goal scorers in the NHL right now. There's an interesting stat that I saw on Twitter from Big Head Hockey. Active players to hit 50 career goals in fewer career games than Cole Caufield. Here's the list. Alex Ovechkin, Kirill Kaprizov, Austin Matthews, Sidney Crosby, and then Patrick Laine and Brock Besser. All elite goal scorers with, I'd say, 4 of those guys being like, I mean, 4 of those guys are Hart Trophy contenders. 3 of them have won it. Kaprizov has only been in the league for a few years. Like, that is insane. Caufield is right up there with those guys. And, a lot of those guys have done amazing things. So, and Kaprizov came in when he was a bit older, too. So, you got to kind of balance that. But if Caufield can keep up his pace and, like, get on the goal-scoring pace of some of these guys on this list, like, I really think that this sub-$8 million contract will look like just even more of a steal than it already does.
He will. Cole Caufield is going to start getting a lot more respect in the next couple of years in the NHL. Mark my words. That's guaranteed. I think we know he's arrived on the scene now, but he really is up there with some of the best in the league. And just the big knock is every time against his size. But as he just continues to fill the net, he's just going to prove those doubters wrong. But the thing about Cole Caufield is he's not one-dimensional either. He's also that energy sort of dynamic guy. Because one of the things I'm liking the most about just his pressers from all of this is he's saying, like, about himself and Nick Suzuki, our compete level is very high. Now imagine when you're one of the top guys in the league in terms of goal scoring, amount of games that you've played in the league and your output from that, and then you're bringing that sort of compete level that we've seen from him, from Nick Suzuki. That's how you really build that winning team, because you need that skill, but you also need that will, that compete, right? To really not just bring you success in the regular season, but also in the playoffs as well, as we've seen.
Yeah, you're very right. It is awesome. And I also wanted to remind you guys that Cole Caufield had like a full half season of just terrible production under one of the Habs' former coaches, where he scored 1 goal in a lot of games. So the fact he's still on this list is completely crazy. So yeah, amazing potential, and we hope he can hit it. And I think he's even more likely to hit it at least to stay on pace with these guys very soon, because we got some cool injury news. I mean, this seemed to slip under the radar. I really am not seeing a lot of people talk about this. I mean, I get it's the offseason, the Habs aren't playing, but Cole Caufield got full clearance on his shoulder 10 days ago. Well, 11 now. This news came out yesterday. And he's resumed shooting pucks already. That's just shy of 4 months after having his surgery on February 1st. And if I recall correctly, I think I saw people around the time of the injury, or the surgery at least, saying about a 6-month recovery time. But 4 months, he's fully cleared. He's shooting already. I mean, if anyone had any doubts that he was going to be ready, fully healthy, good to go by the start of the season, I think those are completely out the window.
No, and it's huge too. Like, the more time that he's going to get on the ice, the more reps that he's going to get with that healthy shoulder, being able to rip shots like we know he can. It's huge, right? Not just for him, but the Montreal Canadiens. I'm wondering if this year, he was on pace for 46 last year. I'm wondering if this year, with really getting so much time to recoup, no playoffs, I'm wondering if this is the year that he is going to hit that 50.
It's going to be interesting, Jesse. I'm super excited to see what kind of line combinations Coach Marty throws out there this year. Are we going to see Dach back on the first line wing, or is Dach going to have to take over that number 2 center role? Who's going to play the wing, the opposite wing with Caufield and Suzuki? There's a lot of choices. Is Raphael Harvey-Pinard going to be? I don't know. There's so many interesting things about to come up this season, not to mention getting the 5th overall pick in this draft. There's so much news to keep up with, and yeah, we're going to bring it all to you as soon as we get it. But that'll do it for this news edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and also let us know what you think about the no intro today. If you're still sticking around, almost 10 minutes into the video, we didn't do our typical intro today. We're testing it out, seeing how you guys like it, so leave some feedback in the comments down below. I'm Josh Gosse for my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.